We're skipping the intro today. We are rolling right into the second hour. How do you feel about that, Leo?
I love it. What am I going to title these shows? Just 8 a.m. and 9 a.m.?
Well, this has been a lot of real estate inspection Q&A. But
yeah, it's Q&A. I just love the fact that we get to answer all these questions. We have a list of questions that Pat George took down that we can get. We'll have on-air listeners if they want to call, 888-404-1010. That's 888-404-1010. And if you're just joining us, I'm Leo Kane with Barrel Engineering and Inspection.
And I'm Katrina Madewell. We're glad you're here.
Yeah, very glad you're here. This is so exciting. I think we need to do a third hour.
Oh my gosh. I don't think my voice can handle it, Leo.
We need to go for 3 hours. Between Adam, you and I, we can handle this. We can handle this.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. And if you're interested in, discussing or talking to us off air about your inspection or engineer type questions or, specifically structural engineer, I guess, right? Questions.
Love it.
We're happy to reach out and give us a call. You will actually get to connect to us and talk to us on the phone, 813-377-2775. That's our off air number. You can call or text 813-377-2775. And you could text value if that's what you're looking for to get information on your home's value, or text buy, B-U-Y, if you are looking to purchase a home. And that could be some of our off-air properties that are not yet listed that we talk about on the air, but they're not yet live, I should say.
We have 12 of them.
We have 12 of them. Should we run through a couple of them?
Yeah, let's run through a couple. So
let's not give out the address just yet.
No, we can't. We'll just talk.
Let's talk about the house.
The city, the zip code, the house itself. Well, for me, it's just zip codes, bedrooms, bathrooms, square footages, and price. So
the first one is a property in Dunedin. Really, really great property.
I love Dunedin. The Highland Games, their Scottish heritage, their brewery. I just love it.
So this community is pretty cool. It actually has its own private beach right here in this community. And it's got a lot of really great amenities in the neighborhood. It's technically a condo, but it's set up like a townhouse. So there's a residential elevator. It's 3 stories, 4-car tandem parking at the bottom. Great property, 3-bedroom, 3-bath, almost 2,500 square feet. That one's going to be just 400. That one's going to be a deal. The other ones in the neighborhood are selling for around 425, a little bit more. This one's ready to move.
No, it's Dunedin. It's got a low number on the street, which means it's close to the downtown. I love it.
Oh, it's so close. It's walking distance to downtown. Mm-hmm. And like I said, this community has its own private beach. So you could be in, Honeymoon Island or Caladesi literally in minutes. You could bike there from this location.
Awesome.
Or take your boat or jet skis or whatever you got. So we've got another one in Tampa coming up. And this one's 3-bedroom, 2-bath, almost 1,500 square feet. Or not quite, probably closer to 1,400.
I'm not familiar. Where's the zip code at?
This one's actually not too far from the airport.
Okay, that's what I thought. Because by the airport, you have a whole bunch of zip codes. Did you know in New York, certain buildings have their own zip code?
What?
Yeah.
Well, I guess New York. Makes sense.
New York. Certain buildings have their own zip code, which is amazing to me. But you got super skyscrapers. I guess it's the easiest way to get the mail in the building.
Where do you live? 90210?
Yeah, pretty much. But that's California.
I know, it is. I'm just being silly. I don't know any New York zip codes, so.
22102?
There you go.
Yeah. A lot of them starts with 2.
Never lived in New York. We're going to be visiting there in a couple weeks. Looking forward to that.
Yeah. Do you know where zip code 00001 is?
Not real. Is that a real zip code?
Oh, it's a real zip code.
Where?
I have to look it up. I forgot. It was a trivia question, and I forgot.
It's a trivia question that you forgot. So in trivia, are you getting multiple choice? Is that how you're getting it right?
Oh, no. You
have to be able to answer on the fly? Mm-hmm. All right. So a couple other listings we have coming up. This is a great one in Wesley Chapel. This particular client's looking to build, and so that'll be available and live when they're ready. Great location in Meadow Point, 1,500 square feet, a little over, 3.2, just 225. That one's going to move pretty quick as well in that area. We've got, like I said, the one in Tampa that we were chatting about, 115,000, 2-bedroom, 1-bath, double lot. That's going to be a great one because someone could theoretically tear the house down and build a couple houses in that place.
Here's some trivia knowledge for you. So the lowest zip code in the United States is actually 00501.
And where is that?
That is in Huntsville, New York. Or Holtzville, New York. Not Huntsville. Holtzville, New York is the lowest zip code. Do you know where the highest zip code is?
Where?
That's Alaska. And that's 99950.
Oh, yeah, they are 9s. Yep. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, so here's the trivia. This will come up. This has come up in trivia before. Usually they ask what state the lowest zip code is in, and I always get that one right.
I'll remember that now, for sure.
So the lowest zip code is 501, and that's in Holtzville, New York. And the highest zip code is in Ketchikan. How did you know to pronounce that correctly?
Because I know my degree's in travel and tourism.
Okay, so 99950. So
I just never worked in that field, but that's what my degree is in.
So that makes sense. And then Florida is a bunch of the 3 3s and 3 4s.
Did you know that Nome also has black sand beaches?
Black sand. Is that volcanic?
Yes.
Awesome.
It's volcanic ash that actually makes the sand black. And at the time, the Poconos was the honeymoon capital of the U.S. I don't know if it is now, but it was before.
Yeah, I knew that.
That's where we honeymoon.
Awesome.
Of course, that's what happens when you have a degree in travel and tourism. You got to go there.
Well, yeah. I mean, yeah, it's just it's market research at that point.
Yes. So this is Tampa Home Talk. We're getting a little bit silly with you today. We're adding a little bit of trivia and having some fun.
Got to have trivia. Oh, we got a St. Pete listing. Did we talk about that one?
We didn't.
I got one in 2nd Ave South in St. Pete.
Oh, yeah. That one's coming up. That's a great property,
That's
actually.
a small one, as I would expect in that zip code.
It is, but
888 square feet,
great
2-1,
condition.
185. Is that historic?
It's got a garage, alley access. Not quite.
It's not in Kenwood?
Nope. Very near.
Actually, you're better off not being in Kenwood. You can do more with your house.
Yep. That's this neighborhood.
Yeah. So I like
Great
that.
little old money neighborhood, though. Let me tell you. Like, it's just a great property.
That's awesome.
Got another one. Oh, this one on Plant City that's coming up. This was actually one of our listeners that heard the show, invited us out. Yeah, she invited us out. This property is amazing. It's got a koi pond, Leo, with fish the size that you would see at Busch Gardens. Not kidding.
I have no frame of reference. The only fish I see at Busch Gardens are the ones they feed the flamingos. They come out of a little bucket.
Okay, so you haven't seen the koi fish that are huge?
At Busch Gardens?
I know I've seen them there.
I haven't seen koi fish at Busch Gardens. I've seen kangaroos. I've seen turtles,
Well,
tortoises.
in all fairness, have not been there in a while, but
hippos.
I do.
Love the hippos.
I remember there
They're so
being
dainty.
huge koi fish there.
Yeah.
Anyway, when have you seen, I know you've seen large koi fish somewhere.
Yeah. The Japanese Zen gardens?
Okay, I haven't been there, so no frame of reference.
Yeah. Well, I do know. That was just a general statement, like in Japanese Zen gardens.
Okay.
So you've never been to any Japanese Zen gardens? Doesn't
No.
have to be in Japan.
Have not.
I've been to them in Texas.
Okay.
Why they have Japanese Zen gardens in Texas, I don't know, but they are beautiful. and they are
Everything's
filled
bigger in
with-
Texas.
They are filled with huge goldfish, which are called koi.
But they're pretty. So they've got over 40 of these things.
Nice. Do they have the long mustaches?
I think I did see a little.
Yeah, I love the long mustaches.
Yeah. Anyway, I actually got to feed them too. And this property was just absolutely incredible. Not only does it have a huge 2-car garage, but it's got an in-law apartment there as well.
So you have 40 mouths to feed if you buy the house?
Oh, stop it. Stop
Wait,
it. It's like once a day. You throw a cup in there, you're good.
Do the fish come with the property, or does the owner take the fish with them?
No, they're staying. They're staying. But it's got an in-law suite. We talk about these properties,
I
right?
like in-law suites.
So it's got an in-law suite with a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, with a huge garage and a full like upstairs decked area. She was going to actually make a studio, like a dance studio up there, and they never did. But you could turn that into so many, many, many things. And then the main house is pretty amazing. This actually was an old historic church that was moved from downtown Plant City and is on this property. It's not quite an acre, but it is just an incredible property. It's beautiful. I mean, the home alone has these amazing stained glass windows and, things in the door, arches, just, and surprisingly, the bedrooms are not small. They're pretty big. It's an incredible property. Cannot wait to list that one. That's going to be $375.
What if I wanted something on the beach?
We actually have something walking distance.
Walking distance.
From the beach. We've got one that's under contract that's a lot only. And then we've got the house next door that we're listing that's a home. It's a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,500 square feet, big lanai in the back, $350.
So you're going to need more agents to sell all these houses.
We do. And I'm glad you mentioned that. So if you're thinking about a career in real estate, it's a great time to reach out to us. We're going to have our onboarding in the near future, probably not looking until June, but it'll be very, very soon. So, if you are interested, text agent to 813-377-2775. If you or someone you know is looking for a career in real estate, we would love to talk to them about possibly being a great addition for our team. 813-377-2775. Don't act like you don't know the number, Leo.
I always like to check. There's just too many sevens, and there's a 3 and a 2, and my dyslexia kicks in, and I start moving stuff around.
It's a good thing you're an engineer, not a math major, right?
I love numbers. Yeah, the difference between math and engineering is the math in math majors has numbers, and the math in engineering is just all letters.
There you go. So questions. We're going to open up our studio call-in lines as well. If you've got something you want to ask myself or Leo, we are a wealth of knowledge. We've got a lot of information. Leo, you know so much about many, many, many things. Not only are you a total trivia buff, which I was going to say, but you're just a super sharp guy. So like on a regular basis, I will call you and ask you random questions and we can answer and come back after the break. Do you remember the one time I called you and I said, hey, what would it take to actually build on an island?
Oh, no.
Make it livable. You remember that?
I remember that.
All right. So.
And I know the answer to it.
I know.
And I've seen a documentary recently called Fire Island. And it went over in depth. There was an engineer who got fired because he was being too real with it. But Fire Island was awesome because the engineer was talking about how to make it just livable for a weekend. And they fired him because he said it couldn't be done. It turns out it couldn't have been done. You don't know the Fire Island story?
No, but I'm going to watch it. And we're going to talk about what it takes to actually build on an island when we come back.
Awesome.
And if you got any of these random questions that you want to ask like that, call us. 888-404-1010. We'd be glad to answer them. 888-404-1010. And we're glad you're here. Thanks for listening to Money Talk 1010. We will be back right after this quick break. Tampa Home Talk, thanks so much for sticking around after the break. Leo, you were a little ill prepared for that comeback there.
Well, yeah, I usually get like something that lets me know something. But I'm not always the comeback person.
No, Adam's missing today in the equation.
Yeah, and you had the question for me, so I was going to let you come back from the break.
He's in Panama having a great time now.
But he checked in very briefly.
He did. It was cool to see him. So my question, and just in case you're just now joining us and you didn't hear the question right before the break, I asked Leo, and I really do ask him the most random stuff sometimes. I keep life fun for you, don't I? Mm-hmm. I said, hey, Leo, what would it take if I actually wanted to build something small or whatever, just a little something on an island, meaning there's nothing there now. There's no utilities, no electric, no water. You would have to run all that stuff and literally figure out how could you make this place habitable? And I don't know if you can answer the next question, but if you have any idea roughly what something like that might cost. And I'm going to put a disclaimer on that and put a range, right? Because it's probably definitely more like a range. But what would it take to actually make an island habitable?
Just for a house or a whole island? What size island are we dealing with? And how close is it to any neighboring islands with utilities?
A small little place, just a little house, like say a little vacation cottage, right? Little 1-bedroom vacation cottage. And the neighboring islands don't have any water, but there is utilities nearby at on the mainland, right? But there's a lot of scattered, like Homosassa, right?
I would think the easiest way to do island living, this is saying you have a boat to get to and from a mainland of some sort. But
you would need a boat, yeah.
You need a boat. So if you have a boat, I would think if you built a house, you hooked it up with the right solar power, you were reasonable in your heating and cooling expectations, like hot water heater and stuff like that. The key is going to be clean drinking water. That is the key. I mean, you can use solar photovoltaic for your electricity, but you need some way to have clean drinking water.
So that's going to be your biggest challenge.
The biggest challenge will be the drinking water. So some people will use rain catchers and they won't drink the water, but you still need drinkable, potable water.
So what's the solution for that?
Some kind of filtration system. Like if you're going to do it right and you have the money, get a small package reverse osmosis water treatment unit. Get a small package unit so you can get clean drinking water. You'll have septic in the back, some kind of small septic system. You'll have photovoltaic for your electricity, and then your basic needs are met. You probably won't have Wi-Fi, so you'll have to have a satellite phone. Mm-hmm. And then you can build a house. And I'm thinking like a concrete shell house might be the way to go, like one of those 3D printer type concrete houses.
Wow, concrete shell house, really?
Yeah. That's going to stand up to the most rigid of the storms and stuff.
How much would something like that cost? Let's say we're building something under 1,000 square feet, and we have to do all that.
Concrete shells are relatively cheap. I mean, you're not going to get a 3D printer on the island to make the shell, but I do know that in South America, they go make entire subdivisions with 3D printers.
What?
Yeah. They basically set up the machine. It's a 3D printer. It's using concrete. It spins the entire shell, moves on to the next one. It's really cheap. They can do them really fast, really cheap.
You've got to be kidding me. I've never seen that.
Well, here in the United States, because it would put too many people out of work, and we have all these other things like they want us to have these block homes, they want us to have these wood frame homes. But yeah, concrete shell homes using a 3D printer type technology is the wave to the future as far as building cheap, affordable housing.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, you can get steel kit homes. I mean, I can buy an entire house, a 1,500 square foot house. I can buy an entire steel kit for like $40,000.
I've seen the steel kits. They're pretty cool.
Yeah, those are cool. I can buy them for $40,000. I can do a concrete shell house for about half that.
Really?
If you're in a subdivision and they're just putting up shells, yeah.
So what's the difference? Like,
well, one's steel and one's
structural?
concrete.
No, it's not my question. What's the difference between these concrete shell houses and like someone that goes and lays the mason blocks? Like, it's not as
well. One
durable,
of the main differences is if you're laying masonry blocks, the inside of the blocks are hollow.
Right.
But if you're doing a concrete shell house, it's a solid pour, so you're getting a solid structure.
How do they do that?
Well, it's the 3D. It's the printer. In other words, you can get a prefab. And here's another way to do it. If I was doing an island, I would probably do a prefab house.
You would?
Which means I would get my panels made for my concrete shell, have the panels brought to the island, and then erect the panels and connect them together.
I guess it would make sense, and it would be strong enough, right, to
that
withstand most storms?
Well, yeah. I mean, it would probably be stronger. I mean, you get the right bolts in the right place, and you get that concrete roof. I mean, that is the way to do it, the nice cube homes. I mean, there are several island nations where they either have these, like, open thatch type things that survive the storms, or they have these concrete boxes that survive the storms.
Wow.
They don't do this CMU frame stuff in the islands.
I don't know. Incredible.
No, it's all pure concrete. So yeah, if I was doing an island house, it would be make sure I have some kind of small package system for my water. I would have solar for the power, and I would have septic for the sewer, and a satellite phone for
what do you think something like that would cost? Because you got to, I mean...
If you can afford the island, you don't need to worry about the small cost on building the house.
I'm just curious. Rough idea. And you have any idea?
It depends. I mean, depending on... that would mostly depend where the island is. How do you get workers out to it? What nation you're dealing with.
Right.
What their extra taxes and stuff are. But, I mean, you can get $150,000, probably get you your water treatment system you need. Photovoltaic, probably figure 10 to 15,000 for the solar. Septic, another 10. The shell itself, that could be anywhere from 20 to 60,000. And then the labor to put it together.
So 100-ish.
150
give or take, yeah, to build it.
Probably.
Wow.
And then the island itself is millions of dollars.
Could be. Not all of them are.
Yeah.
But pretty cool thought, isn't it?
Yeah, I like the idea. I love the idea. And I love the idea of building in the middle of nowhere. But I also love the idea of being a conservationalist and not building in the middle of nowhere and letting the sea turtles and the seals and all these other natural cute animals have the land too.
I wonder if, I know we were talking about you'd have to have satellite, right, for phone and stuff. Mm-hmm. But since some of these other places are actually near, like if you ever looked at Homosassa, some of the streets are right there and there's all these little islands out there.
I have not.
Anyway, I bet you could probably have like one of those neighboring, like where the houses and the infrastructure already is, because we know they have internet and Wi-Fi
just
and
extend
stuff.
it.
Do like a booster.
Yeah, doing it well.
Or
just extend the infrastructure to get to you.
But if it's on an island, do they do that? Like under
well, I've seen them. I mean, like now we're talking about less about island in the middle of nowhere and just like continuing an infrastructure. Like when I worked for the power company, I was a grid designer, and we were doing that all the time. We were extending a grid. And actually, when I worked in Hialeah, I was building a water plant. So I'm very familiar with both of that. We had to extend the grid to us, and then we had to build a water plant, and then we had to connect that water plant back into the city so they could get the water that we were producing.
Were you like creating a city? It sounds like
we
it.
actually allowed the last 5% of Hialeah to build out.
Oh, wow.
Which is neat, because you go down there now, and it's a mall. There's a new exit off the highway. There's all these subdivisions. When we were out there in 2011, it was a cow pasture.
Yeah, isn't that interesting how they just awesome. Connect and extend all the city infrastructures?
Mm-hmm. And all that's, and the reason why we were able to do that and turn the last 5% of Hialeah into a subdivisions and a mall is because we put the water there first. Because the water will...
The potable water is
Potable water will drive everything else.
That makes sense.
Yeah, without the potable water, no life.
So what happens if it's a complete desolate area and like nobody lives there and the closest thing is too far away to connect?
Then, yeah, no. What ends up happening is the power company will extend the power to you. You will have to pay for that extension. And then over the course of 5 years, as more people tap into it, you get your money back.
Makes sense.
So that's the way it works. That's the way.
So you got to front load all that cost and then you get it back later.
So basically, the city of Hialeah paid for a water treatment plant that front loaded the cost of the electric grid coming out there that allowed all these subdivisions to happen.
Have you seen the people that actually build homes inside these shipping containers?
I've seen those as well.
What do you think about those?
It works. I mean, it's a steel kit, basically. Yeah. I mean, we have this stigma.
What about insulation?
We have this stigma in our mind that we need to live in a block home with a framed top floor. It needs to have all these bells and whistles. I need to have my Cat 5 internet cable plugins, even though everything's Wi-Fi. I need to have a whole closet dedicated to a switchboard. You don't need all that. I mean, back to the Dave Ramsey thing, living within your means.
Yeah.
And living debt-free.
Some of those means could be pretty expensive if you're trying to build on an island. But
yeah, but I mean, if I lived in a steel container home, I would be a much smaller mortgage than if I lived in one of these beautiful homes that we're selling at like $400,000 or $500,000.
It's interesting how the younger generation is all about a lot of the simplicity. Have you noticed?
Yeah, like that's why the price of tiny homes is astronomical.
That I don't get.
No, it's a boutique.
Yeah, we've done shows on them, and it's like when you look at the cost per square foot, it's like ridiculous.
Yeah, but the sad part is you can buy a shed, and then you can buy a shed and convert it for a fraction of the cost of going to a boutique tiny home person and having them make it. So that's what I would do. I would buy the shed, I would outfit it with IKEA stuff, and I would be a fraction of the cost of having a tiny home designer.
Or the shipping container, right?
Well, the shipping container you outfit with IKEA as well.
We've had them on the show before, and it's interesting. A lot of their concept is all about making the tiny home mobile, which kind of fits a little bit more into like the RV travel trailer type space.
Yeah, but it's not a mobile home. It's a tiny home.
It's not, but it does kind of fit more in that space. If you're moving it, it's on wheels.
Yeah, all it has to do is be under 12 feet wide, and you can actually transport it.
The biggest challenge they have had in the past, when we talked about the tiny homes, is the municipalities actually allowing a structure that small to be built anywhere, in a lot.
Yeah, no, they're trying to crack down because they want houses they can tax, not something that is there today, gone tomorrow.
You should just do a tiny home village. I don't know why they haven't done that. I think there's one in Orlando, isn't there?
Mm-hmm. We'll be back right after the break.
We'll be back.
Well, good morning. Welcome back. This is Tampa Home Talk. I'm Leo Kane here with Katrina Madewell, and now I get to ask Katrina the tough questions, but my tough questions won't nearly be as tough as your tough questions.
What do you have up your sleeve? What do you want to know?
I want to know what the best marketing strategy for selling my home is.
Oh, I love that question. I'm so glad you asked it. And in all honesty, it's going to take more than the time we have left to talk about it. But we have several. And if you want to
dodged every single one of my questions.
I'm not dodging it. I'll answer it.
Every single
There's
one.
many, many, many things that we do to market a home. So I don't want the person listening to think this is the only thing we do. But to answer your question, what's the best?
Yeah, the best.
The best marketing strategy, honestly, I think is our network of people. So our network of other agents that we know and how we network among agents. There's private Facebook groups that you guys don't see where we share off-market properties and, all sorts of things like that. And honestly, that's one of our best strategies for selling homes. And that's what makes us different because all we do every day is actively look for buyers and sellers. That's what we do. So it's kind of playing, matchmaker. Like we have this home, this buyer, what's perfect for them, getting them connected, whether it's one of our properties or one of our agent peers. And so one of the things that makes us unique is we're very much liked by our peers. We talk about that in the consultation, and we work very cooperatively with our peers. So, for example, we're doing an open house on Cummings Place this Saturday. We reach out to our, we can see the backside analytics of MLS, so we can tell what agents have a buyer match for that home. We can also tell if they've marked it a favorite or a possibility. So part of our strategy and our plan is to reach out to those other agents, let them know, hey, your buyer, this reference number, actually may have an interest in this home. And by the way, we're holding it open this Saturday. You don't even have to be there. Send your buyer through. If they love the home, we're going to send them back to you to write an offer, and we would love to do a deal with you. So that's one of our best strategies for getting homes sold.
And who comes up with that selling price?
The list price?
The selling price.
What do you mean? The list price of the home?
Yeah.
We do.
You do.
Selling price is what it actually sold for. The buyer is the one that determines that.
Okay.
Appraiser is going to double check it for the bank, but the buyer ultimately is the one that decides what the fair market value is.
And that price is negotiable?
Of course. Everything's negotiable, right? Especially depending on the market that you're in.
Awesome.
I know you guys thought I was crazy for using my analogy, but it's very, very true, like with anything. And the same is true for homes. So if I say, Leo, I'm going to sell you this cup. How much is this cup worth to you? And it's worth what it's worth to me, and it's worth what it's worth to you. The difference is if I want to sell it and you want to buy it, we have to agree how much I'm willing to let this go for and how much you're willing to pay for it.
Is this where you try and sell me a pen again?
I'm not going to sell you a pen, but it doesn't matter if it's a pen, if it's a cup, if it's a house. The same thing is true, right? You're selling something that another person has to find value in.
Yeah, but if I was going to sell that cup or a pen, I wouldn't need an agent to do it. Why do I need an agent to sell my house?
Because it's your biggest asset, your biggest liability, and your biggest monthly payment. And why on earth would you represent your own interest when you don't do that for a living? Right?
Wow.
Think about this.
I'm in.
It's like we play the game Monopoly every day, right? So if I play Monopoly every single day, and I've done this for 28 years, every day, 6 days a week, I play Monopoly. And then you want to play Monopoly with me. You're probably not going to win because I play that game every single day.
Can I trade you a hotel for 2 railroads?
I'm going to know more about the game Monopoly than you will, right? So I'm just going to have better strategies.
Can I trade you a hotel for 2 railroads?
Same would be true for trivia, right? Mm-hmm. And you could, it's up to you. Sometimes they're like, it's not really like the values there. We just feel sorry for them in Monopoly. So you go ahead and trade with them or whatever.
Well, sometimes you do that to keep the game going because Monopoly becomes so one-sided. Everyone just wants to quit.
Yeah. My husband won't play Monopoly with me. I think I heard Dave say that too, that he couldn't get anybody to play Monopoly with him.
No, I do.
Or Scrabble.
I do bad trades in Monopoly all the time. It keeps the game interesting.
Yeah, then you get into this never-ending game of Monopoly that's also exhaustive because you're like, okay, I'm like done. Like somebody should win, even if it's not me, it's fine, just be done.
That's why I like Settlers of Catan. There's like 5 or 6 different win strategies. You can all be doing a different win strategy, and you really don't know who's going to win till the end.
Yeah, that's a cool, different, strategic game. But the point is, if you're playing with your biggest asset, right,
Which is your hotel on Boardwalk.
Right, that's what you own. Your hotel on Boardwalk. To you, it's a big deal. It's the biggest thing you own. Why on earth would you try to represent your own interest when you're selling that? And if let's say you're a for sale by owner, then you're going to go up against, like you're going to pay a buyer's agent. We hear that a lot, but you don't want anybody to represent your interest. I mean, of course the buyer's agent has to be paid for the work they're doing, but make no mistake, they're representing the buyer and you need somebody to represent you.
So if I'm a buyer, how many houses should I look at before I put an offer in?
We see right now the average home buyer looks at 4 to 5 homes before they make a decision on a home. You want to know why?
Why?
Stop it.
You asked me to ask you why.
It's the reason why is you'll probably notice this. The information that we have is so much more robust than it used to be. Like, for example, in our multiple listing service right now, we can put up to 50 homes online in the MLS. So not only do we have that, but we have like these dollhouse views. Viscount, remember Viscount, the one that we had for sale? That one had the dollhouse view. So if you have the Google goggles, you can walk through the house.
I like that.
In this.
So let's say I've looked at 5 homes. I put an offer in on what will be my dream home. What do I do if my offer is rejected?
A lot of that's about strategy, right? So it's about looking at comparables, making sure you're making a good, very strong offer. Many of the time, some of the things we have to do to get our offer accepted, it's not just about price, right? Because we had a listing recently, had 11 offers, right, on it. Some of those went thousands of dollars above the list price. If that person's getting a loan, now we have concerns that it might not appraise. Mm-hmm. So we're not necessarily always going to pick the highest one because, let's face it, a seller doesn't want to go through that process again. They want a good, solid buyer that's going to stick with it, till the end with them. And so essentially that's what it's about. At the end of the day, is just making sure your interests are represented well. And then paying attention to all the details. What was your last question you asked me?
I got to know. What are the different ways you've seen buyers back out of deals?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I want to hear some horror stories. Let's do a horror story moment.
The reality of it is the buyer has a lot more outs of a contract than a seller does. They just do.
I know.
Like if you're selling your home, you can't just say, "Oh, I changed my mind."
Well, okay, let's start with the seller. If I'm a seller, since there's less ways for me to do it, I'm a seller. I let's just say I'm a seller and I'm selling you my house for $100,000, and I'm 6 days into the contract, and someone just gives me something for 125, and I really want to back out because I want the extra 25%. Okay, so what are my ways I can not? I know I can't back out because someone's giving me a higher price, but what are my ways I can back out of that contract to take that higher price?
Really, one of your only very, very small windows is if the buyer tries to change the deal on you. So, for example, if you are still in the inspection period and you're doing your home inspection and the buyer is trying to go back and renegotiate repairs on an as-is contract, and the seller gets a better, higher offer, they can actually, at that point, reject it. They can say, nope, I'm not doing it, and I want a release and cancellation.
Nice.
Now, the buyer could say, never mind, we're on.
And then they can't back out.
Well, the trick is you have to have both parties sign that release and cancellation.
Okay.
If both parties don't agree and sign that release and cancellation, as real estate agents, we're like, nope, hands off. That's going to the attorney. You guys can fight it out. Like we're not involved in that.
Okay, so a seller can back out if the buyer changes terms. How can the buyer back out?
So the buyer is going to have several different contingencies within that contract. Now, of course, it depends on how it's structured, how it's written, and what goes into it. But when you think about the traditional buyer and what contingencies they get and how the property or how the contract is written, they're going to have a home inspection contingency, which means they have to like the home. They're as is with the right to inspect. If they don't like it, they don't have to buy it.
They can back out because the garage is blue instead of green.
That's right. I mean, they can, for any reason, and they don't have to provide the seller with a copy of the inspection report.
I hate when I actually do hate that when buyers back out because of something cosmetic that wasn't in our report, and they're like, "Oh, the home inspection," and I'm like, "Had nothing to do with the home inspection."
Technically speaking, they could do a visual inspection themselves and not even hire an inspector and still get out.
I know.
Yeah, they don't have to provide an
That's why I
inspection
say
report.
they don't like the color of the paint in one of the bedrooms. They back out.
They could find a better home they
so
like.
I'm through my 10-day window.
So
how do I back out?
So basically, let me talk about all the ways they can first, right? So inspection's one of them. Yeah. Appraisal is another. And you don't even have to have a separate appraisal contingency. You're going to get a finance contingency in there, which means you have to have an ability to get a loan.
Okay.
Now, the lender is not going to lend more than the purchase price if that value comes in lower. So if you don't go back and renegotiate the deal or figure out how that's going to break down, they could get out based on that. And then here's the thing. They're pre-approved, but it still has to go through underwriting.
Yeah.
Right? So that means if they lose their job the day before closing, there's a very good chance they're still going to be protected. Because even when they give a commitment letter, which means the lender says, okay, this is our commitment to lend on this property to this buyer, they're still going to have some outstanding conditions. And one of the things they verify employment the day of closing, sometimes literally before they fund it.
So if I wanted to back out of a contract, I could quit my job the day before closing.
No. Well, I mean, you could. It's not a good strategy.
It'd be confusing to my people if I quit my job. But let's just say I was a normal.
You could.
And I'm not going to buy a home anytime soon, so I guess
If you were a W-2 wage earner employer and you quit your job the day before closing and you no longer had employment, that could technically get you out. Now, when it gets dicey like this, especially the more money that's at stake, escrow money, and the higher the price, this is where the attorneys are going to get involved. On the smaller, middle range, average home, you have like a $300,000 home, you're going to see about a $3,000 escrow. It's not a ton of money.
So let me ask you this. So I'm a seller. I am selling my existing house to buy a new house. The buyer bails on me the week of closing because they lost their job or they couldn't get financing. And now I can't afford to buy the new house. What do I do?
You're going back to the drawing board. We're going to be relisting the property and trying to find your next buyer for you and moving as quickly as we can.
What do I do about the house I wanted to buy?
I don't know how the contract's written. If I wrote the contract, there's likely going to be a contingency if we can help it, or a way to protect you in that contract. But there's, I don't know. It depends on how the contract's written.
And then let's just say you're the seller and you've got a sell to buy contract. So the seller, your buyer has to sell their home. How do you protect your seller? I just asked a really confusing question.
So, no, I know what you're saying. But
the listeners still can't follow that.
If we get a contract on a property and the buyer has a home they need to sell before they can buy my home.
Yeah.
right? Or buy the home I'm selling.
Right. How do you protect your seller from that buyer?
Well, we're going to do quite a few things, and I hear the music bed's already rolling in behind us, so that means I'm not going to have time to get into all the logistics right before the break. But we're going to do many, many, many things with regards to protecting the seller, and I'm going to talk about all of those when we come back right after the break, because there's a lot of things that we're going to ask for, and that's a great question, Leo.
Nice.
Our off-air number is 813-377-2775, 813-377-2775. We got a little Facebook alert. Very good point, Dessa, about the for sale by owners. We're actually paying for the agent to represent the other side while they have to fly naked and get no representation. I didn't say it. One of our watchers on Facebook did. Again, our off-air number, 813-377-2775. When we come back right after the break, we're going to answer the question about how do we protect the seller. Back in a
Well, good morning. Welcome back. It's Leo with the tough questions.
That's Leo, and I'm Katrina Madewell. You're listening to Tampa Home Talk. Thanks so much for joining us here today on Money Talk 1010. If you stuck around during the break, thanks for doing that. We appreciate it.
Yeah, so back to the tough question.
Your question you had before the break.
I'm the agent, Katrina Madewell.
How do we protect?
How do we protect my seller from a buyer who has to sell to be able to buy?
How to protect my seller from a contract that has a contingency to sell their home? Meaning they got that contingency. They've got to be able to sell that home in order to buy.
Yes.
So we do that in a couple different ways. For one, you may remember, and for the person that maybe didn't hear this before, my background is in mortgage. So I'm going to be very, very, very well versed in not only those approval letters that come over, but in what actually goes into that deal, right? The little things that can change it. We talked about this in the last hour, from an accept or an approve eligible to a refer, right? Something that's not actually approvable. So if you put enough garbage in, you'll get garbage out.
Right.
So if you put in, you got $50,000 worth of assets, you might get an accept where if you really don't have that $50,000 in assets, then that could easily be a refer or a denial. So one of the ways that I protect sellers when they have a contingency to sell, first and foremost, if they have that contingency, not only are we going to be asking for a copy of that contract. Mm-hmm. So number one, it can't be just listed, but we need to have it actually listed on the market, contract with a buyer, and ideally speaking through the inspection period. We have a contract, a rustic trail. Remember that one? That one actually has a contingency to sell their home, but they're through all the major hurdles, and the agent's very, very good. So one of the things we do is we get a contract of that contract for sale. Sometimes, many times, I'll actually know the buyer, like the agent on the other side of the deal. That's pretty cool when that happens.
That's neat.
And so I'll pick up the phone and I'll say, hey, tell me about this deal that you have at 123 Main Street. How is your buyer like in it to win it? Are they through inspections? How's the appraisal? Like, I'll just ask them a lot of questions. Second thing I'll do is I'll look at the pre-approval letter to see who that is from. And then I'll dive a little bit more into that contract that they're selling, which means I'm going to pull the properties up in the MLS if I can. I'm going to look to see how those photos are, try to get a good feel for who the buyer's agent is, and how strong is that buyer? How strong is that contract? Like, are they getting inspections in a week or is it 15 days? Because if they just got a contract and they have a 15-day inspection period and then a 30-day commitment, I'm not going to like that. And I also may talk to the buyer's lender on the other side of the deal to find out how strong that buyer is to make sure we're going to have a good, solid deal.
So,
and then many times we're going to put layers on that, or we could even add in what they call a kick-out clause for the seller, which means if you don't remove this contingency to sell your home, meaning your buyer's got to get through their stuff, get through the process, and get rid of that contingency for us, we're going to put out kick-out clause, which means we can actually take another offer if you don't get your junk out of the way. Make sense?
Nice. So basically, I can take the 125 over the 100 if I have your clause in it of kick-out.
If you got a kick-out clause, absolutely,
nice.
Yeah. Well, it's a caveat, right?
Oh,
so
caviar.
You can, but the buyer has to be willing to remove that sale contingency.
Okay.
Now, do you want to know one of my strategies?
Yeah, that's what I'm asking about.
So, especially if I represent the buyer, I'm going to say, great, we'll remove the contingency. Knowing what I know about lending, if I represent the seller, I'm going to be asking some different questions. So if you remove that contingency to sell your home, then I'm going to go back to your lender and I'm going to say, great, now I need to know, do they qualify for both homes?
Oh,
because they
like
still have a finance contingency.
That's right.
So even if they remove the sale of their home contingency, it's not a big deal. If that home is not sold, and they can't qualify with 2 mortgages, guess what? They can just get out on their finance contingency.
So wouldn't it be just
So if I represent the buyer, I'm going to use that to my advantage and remove that contract.
So would it be best to just not take deals from a close-to-close?
No, I'm not saying that's best. All I'm saying is we're trying to avoid a lot of those hiccups and those things behind the scenes that you don't see and you don't know happen, right? So we use... when we sit down with a client, whether it's a buyer or a seller, we go through this thing we call 88 types of turbulence. And it's stuff that can go wrong when you buy, sell, or borrow money. And this is a lot of these things that we're talking about. What we want to make sure we also don't have is a daisy chain effect, right? Mm-hmm. So let's say I'm selling 123 Main Street. I got a buyer for 123 Main Street, and the buyer is selling their home at, 423 Maryland Avenue, whatever it is. And then basically now we need to look at that contract to see, does that buyer have a contingency to sell their home as well? Mm-hmm. So sometimes this can be like a daisy chain. I had one time when I started looking in it went 5 layers back.
Wow.
5. That's excessive. That's a lot more than we would see, but it literally went 5 layers back. So when you start getting with that many people involved and that many layers, I advise my seller to not take the deal.
Okay, that makes sense.
I mean, it just had too many layers of risk to take their home off the market and do that. It's just too much. So, I mean, the buyer could have all their stuff together and their buyer can have all their stuff together, but you got layers and, some of those layers are out of state.
Yeah, no.
There's no relationship with the agent. You can't pull up the MLS to see anything on that home. I mean, it's too much stuff. And I think when I got to the end of that daisy chain, if I'm not mistaken, the home was listed and they didn't even have a buyer. It wasn't on the market yet or something wild.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
But
But that's how I protect my sellers when we get a contract with a contingency for the buyer to sell their home. So that's why a lot of agents sometimes will run. Like they're not going to go into that and say, yeah, no, get rid of that contingency first and then we'll move forward. Or you can just take the kickout clause. Mm-hmm. If you want to take the deal, take the kickout clause. Sometimes it's going to scare the buyer off because now the buyer is going to be invested. They're going to have inspections on their home. They're going to have appraisal, all these other layers. And if you don't remove that inspection, that sale of your home contingency, then essentially you can kick your contract out and take another one. That's what happened with my house when I bought it.
Oh, wow.
I wasn't even an agent then. I was a
You were cutthroat
mortgage.
Back then?
No, I knew contracts very well inside and out. I know contracts. That's what it boils down to. I know the contract inside out. I can have very educated conversations with the attorneys that have to get involved sometimes. That's why a lot of them like me. But basically, that's...
You know what we call people who can have educated conversations with attorneys?
What?
Ruthless.
Okay, fine, whatever. You can call me ruthless. But I can just tell you this. When we bought our house, there was another buyer under contract. I liked the home. We were done. I had everything done. My loan had actually already been underwritten. All I needed was an inspection, appraisal, title. I was ready to close. And we closed that deal in like less than 10 days. So the seller, of course, didn't want to turn my offer away because I'm like, look, I'm a mortgage person. My deal's done. Like, this is as good as cash. I could have written the offer with no contingency, just like an appraisal and a title. But so that's what happened. They had a kickout clause. The buyer didn't want to remove their contingency, so they made them release and cancel. Otherwise, their escrow's in jeopardy. And they end up getting a contract on their home like a couple days later. But we swooped in and bought the home. And we still live there today.
Awesome.
Maybe the other buyer hadn't have. They might have gotten foreclosed on. So
let's talk money next week. Let's bring in a guy to talk money.
We will. Our off-air number, if you want to reach us, is 813-377-2775. Again, 813-377-2775. You can call or text that number. Remember, love where you live. We're going to fix it. Welcome home.